Good evening. It's Tuesday night. It's 5:36 p.m. The N5 show is back, and we've got loads of things to discuss tonight. We're going to discuss all things Arsenal. We're going to have a look back at the Carabao Cup semi-final performance against Chelsea, where we now have a final against Man City awaiting us. We're going to go back to look at the Premier League games against Leeds, look at the game of the weekend against Sunderland, and a massive week coming up with fixtures thick and fast. Wolverhampton next Wednesday. We've obviously got Wigan on Sunday in the FA Cup. But before that, we have Brentford in a massive London derby on Thursday night. So loads to discuss, loads to look forward to. And before we start, just going to say good evening to Jim. How you doing, mate?
Hello, mate. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I hope... I think I've passed you the flu, mate, through the last show we did. I was Benadrylled up, and it sounds like you need it now. So...
I'm gonna have a gripe, mate. So like we got a private health company, right? Couldn't get a doctor's appointment today, so I spoke to our private doctors. 25 quid they want for a prescription.
What?
25 quid they want for a prescription. Do you know what? I think I might just struggle with if I can get a normal doctor's appointments tomorrow. But look, that's my moan out of the way, mate. That's my Tuesday night moan.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable, mate. But look, obviously we didn't do a show last week because yours truly was in Bristol on Tuesday night, which was quite an interesting affair, sitting at a restaurant. Had a mobile phone to hand, so I was watching the game through my mobile phone. So I think we'll start with the Chelsea game. Look, mate, we're in a League Cup final on Sunday, March 22nd. It feels good to be going back to Wembley in a cup final, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, mate. I cannot wait, to be honest. That is very much reason to get down to the airport, pack the bags, and get back over to London. So I'm over the moon with it, mate. I thought we managed to tie in its entirety very, very well in regards to what we did at Stamford Bridge, and then managing it well at the Emirates. And all in all, over the two legs, the best team won.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we done the hard work, didn't we? Like you said, at Stamford Bridge. Let's be honest, it was a 3-2 scoreline, which I felt flattered Chelsea.
Absolutely.
Could have easily been 4-1 up before they got the second. We obviously played a different game in the return leg. A lot's been said since then, but I just felt that it was a job done, mate. And I felt that actually, really, Chelsea didn't really lay a glove on us. And I felt with Liam Rossini, he tried to play the long game a little bit in terms of keep themselves in the game for 70, 80 minutes, then bring on the likes of Cole Palmer and that to maybe pinch a goal. But we stood firm, didn't we? And that defence is the best in Europe for a reason.
Yeah, and it was a very odd way of operating, on his part. I thought it could have been, for the neutral, like a much more entertaining affair if he'd have tried to play a slightly more expansive brand of football. But yeah, you're right. I think he was trying to make sure that the tie wasn't over at half-time by seeing the game through. But nothing will please Arteta more than a team that just wants to kind of play in a structured formation, that doesn't try and penetrate the opposition and sees time go by, or see his guys working in a lower zone. Like, they can kind of navigate their way around, and the clock's ticking and we're already ahead in the game. So, like, do you know what I mean? The pressure's kind of off us. And I'm not sure if they ended up mustering a shot on target or one. But, not trying to, weigh in and take the mickey out of Chelsea fans, but I'd have been pretty embarrassed if that was the display that, from a team that have actually won every single domestic trophy that they could win as a club, that's what they think their best is to put out in a second leg of a semi-final. It became a a fairly embarrassing affair, really, and it played right into Arsenal's hands. They had to take the game to them, and they just didn't. So uh, it wasn't the most entertaining game. But it didn't need to be for Arsenal. What the objective from the game was just to get through it and not lose the tie. And if they didn't lose the tie, they won or drew. They were at Wembley on the 22nd of March, waiting for Newcastle or City. And then the icing on the cake, obviously, was Kai popping up. And there is, I mean, I know you, mate, and I know you love some shithousery. So I can just see when Havertz rounded the keeper that you were just absolutely in your element at that moment. You're probably like scrolling through your phone book in your head, thinking how many messages you were going to get in the next 5 minutes.
Well, I tell you what, mate, you're totally far from the truth. I'm being totally honest, and I'll tell you why. Because when Kai rounded the goalkeeper, you would not believe this. The phone paused. It literally froze. So I'm sitting
You're
there thinking,
joking.
no, mate, I'm not joking. He's rounded the goalkeeper. He's literally rounded the goalkeeper. And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. So I'm quickly trying to get on the Sky Sports app. And then I've seen the Arsenal 1, Chelsea 0. And I'm sitting around the table with work colleagues. Yeah, and I kind of made myself heard across the whole restaurant, which was quite amusing. But yeah, it was a bit frustrating. I didn't get to see the goal till about probably an hour or 2 hours later. But for me, I was just buzzing because, look, it was a big performance, and you're right, mate. Kai Havertz getting the winner in the 97th minute. Yeah, that does please me, mate. I ain't gonna lie. Like,
yeah, but like
he took a lot of crap from Chelsea fans over the years. And this is a guy that scored them the winner in the Champions League final. And like, I get that he moved to us and all that, but look, neither here or there. Look, he's got good history at Chelsea, whether they like it or not.
But like, mate, it explains their fan base, because I've never really understood them as a football club. Like, obviously through the Abramovich years, they were immense, and but there weren't really much clout to talk about for whatever period before that, and like the longevity of their history, I don't really remember it. I certainly don't remember them too much in the first 20 years I was going to the Arsenal. And then they've had a very good period post millennium, but they bought Havertz. Everyone fell in love with him because he was this German wonder kid who broke onto the scene and was like the next big thing. Didn't necessarily have a bad time at Chelsea, but they were in transition. Like you said, won them the Champions League final. The entire fan base was mugging us off, saying that we'd done a load of dough on, like, never should we have got 60 million for Havertz. We've robbed you blind, and then his output at Arsenal has been phenomenal. And the way in which I defend Gyökeres, mate, which I'm I've got my chest puffed out a little bit at the moment, and I've kept all the receipts from everyone that's fired off against him. Flopperez, where's Timberlands, all this carry on. Like, I'm coming for everyone. But they did the same thing with Havertz. And actually, if you look at his return, all the Arsenal fans were saying the minute Havertz comes back, he goes straight back in the team. Well, that's a bit weird from the narrative that people put around him in the first 3 or 4 months, until everyone says he was gifted a penalty against Bournemouth, which set him off. And all the Chelsea fans were like desperate to get rid of him and mugged us off. But they give him massive loads of stick now that he's scored 3 in 4 against them for Arsenal, and he goes around at the 97th minute and runs in front of them and points at the badge. I mean, I love it. Like, that is entertainment personified. We waited 96 minutes for a bit of a yawn fest for that one moment, and it was like, it was blissful football as a Gooner. So yeah, I think I think we did everything we needed to in the tie. And there's one player, Smugs, I want to mention, who has subsequently had a good game after that. But in that tie, and actually in the away leg at Chelsea, is for me, I think, is probably being a bit of an unsung hero at Arsenal at the moment, and that's Piero Hincapié. And I think this guy, mate, is the full package, mate. People forget because of what he achieved. He'd gone to a Europa League final. He was an unbeatable under Xabi Alonso at Leverkusen. They went a season invincible. And this guy's only 23, just turning 24 years old, mate. And I tell you, every single time he plays for Arsenal now, I think he gets better and better and better. and he's got everything in his game. He's so physical. He's up for the physical challenge. He's an amazing athlete, rapid, quick, looks very good in his defensive duties now. I don't actually think we've probably seen the best of him in an attacking sense, because he's got quite a lot of attacking output in his game for Leverkusen and country, and I'm not quite sure we've seen it expressed just yet, Arsenal. But I'd tell you, just as an out-and-out defender, if Calafiori, you got to remember, mate, Calafiori's Italy's #1 player, was like the first half of the season was top draw. Before that, Lewis Skelly was the first choice England left back. So he's got pretty hard competition to come up against, and the standard does not wane whatsoever when he's in the team. I'd actually argue, I know we're going to go through all the games, but I thought Sunderland probably was, from the back four, Calafiori was maybe the weak link, if there is one. He just had a bit of an average game. Nothing too problematic. But when Hincapi come on, he rose the level. And I think Calafiori's probably going to have to hold a really, really high output level, or he's going to struggle and get replaced in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it's a really interesting battle, isn't it, between them both? And I still think Calafiori personally, once bit, it just shades it for me at the moment. But I'm a big Hincapi fan as well, and I think he's the kind of player who's just going to get better and better. I think we'll see potentially next season the best version of him. We got to remember as well that he joined the club near the end of the transfer window and then got injured. So he's not had a pre-season at the club whatsoever. He joined it with an injury, and then obviously he had to play time, didn't he, before he got into the team. And look, he come in as well and had to play centre back against Chelsea away, which was obviously a big ask at the time. When I think we put him and Mascara at the back, which was a bold decision from Mikel, if I'm being totally honest, yeah. Obviously, it paid dividends because we got to draw that game. But look, we're in a really good position in terms of these two left backs, in my opinion. And I just hope that we can keep these two fit, because it just seems throughout the season, if it's not one, the other's been injured. And look, we found out like last month, like when actually they're both injured, we're potentially looking at Timber being left back, and he don't look nowhere near the player when he plays left back to right back. So just fingers crossed, actually, these two guys can get us through to the end of the season now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think Gabriel and Saliba are going to be essential that we keep them fit for the lion's share. We're going to have to utilise the squad and rotate properly in the next kind of in the coming weeks, just to make sure that we can just keep them fresh. There must be an international window coming up at some point soon. It feels like ages since we've had the last one, so I'm sure there's one brewing. So I think it's really important that probably they rotate Gabriel. I'd like them to rotate Gabriel and Saliba against Wigan Sunday, mate, if I'm being honest. And then that's a full week break between Brentford and Wolves. And then obviously we then go straight into Spurs on that Sunday as well. So yeah, I think it's really important that we just protect the spine a little bit. I think they've obviously done that by rotating the forwards a little bit better. Saka's obviously picked up a little niggle, so Madueke's playing. No doubt, I think Saka's due to come back sometime in the next week, because they targeted the North London derby return for him. They're rotating the eights quite nicely now with Eze and Havertz. Rice's workload is another one and Zubimendi's that I've kind of got half an eye on, because we've got no Marino now. So, they're going to have to just be clever the way in which they manage those two. Again, with Wigan, you'd hope that at least one of them is rested. You could probably get away with not say get away with, because Wigan are an accomplished side, but Zubimendi, Rice, and Havertz. Sorry. Excuse me. Norgard, Eze, and Havertz would be a more than amenable midfield for the Wigan game. There's and then just you just got to chuck. Hopefully Odegaard's back and he could play in that game. That'd be a good game for him to come back into. So yeah, I think the management of the squad's really important for Mikel, but we've got the depth to be able to deal with it, right? So, but yeah, on the Chelsea time, mate, just to round it off, it wasn't the most entertaining game, but we keep getting drawn into this. Oh, we're playing boring football, and this like absolute nonsense coming out of these ex-United players. Who did I hear say? I was listening to Talk Sport, and someone was talking to Martin Keown and Simon Jordan, and I'm trying to think. I don't know if it was Ali McCoist who got no, it wasn't. I'm not sure if it was Ali McCoist. It might have been Jeff Stelling. And someone turned around and said this wouldn't even be in the top 10 of best Premier League champions in the history of the Premier League, right? And then they were like all the Liverpool sides, all the City sides. And but then all they turned around and did was just wax lit. No, it was Noel Gallagher said it. He was a guest on Talksport, and he said it wouldn't be in the top 10 sides. But then all Noel Gallagher did was like, the title's over. It doesn't matter that we got the winner against Liverpool if you'd have watched the first 80 minutes. And then all he did then was wax lyrical about Arsenal, mate. Defensively, like best team in Europe, and then they're just, they're competent in the midfield and the up front. And I just think like, why, I know we're going to talk a little bit fan reaction to the Man City game and stuff in later in the show, but I just think like just stop getting yourself so consumed by what everyone else is saying. Do you know what I mean? Just focus on what Mikel's doing. Focus on Arsenal. Focus on supporting the team. We go game by game. Now reviewing the Chelsea game wasn't the most entertaining game that you can watch, but what everybody wanted to be in the final at the end of the game. It didn't really matter. So yeah, we just got to keep picking it up, mate, haven't we? And moving on to the next one.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. You got to take things game by game, mate. 1 week things can look a bit bleak, but in the next week it can change. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. When we lost to Man United at the Emirates, obviously that was a tough week to come through after. But then look what we did at Leeds, and we'll go into that performance in a minute. Picked up a really healthy 4-0 win. But that momentum into the 1-0 win against Chelsea, and then a nice 3-0 win against Sunderland. So. Yeah, I'm pretty much in the camp that actually is one game at a time. Look, Mikel's got a big job on his hand in my opinion. In terms of like, look, firstly, keeping the players away from the negativity. Do you know what I mean? As you can see in the chat already, wish someone could spell better, but there you go. But look, we just got to think about ourselves at the moment and just take away what anyone else can do, because. Look, Man City are going to win games. We know Man City are going to go on a run. We know Man City have got good players, and they can produce a run of fixtures whenever they need fit too. So we know that was going to happen at some point. But it's about us. If we continue at the pace we're going and picking up the points the way we're going, we've got a very good chance at the end of the season to be sitting top still. But just get away from the negativity. Just get away from the moment. Yeah, Man City got an incredible result at Liverpool the other day. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can't argue against that. But Jesus Christ, the negativity that come from it after, you would have thought that Arsenal had lost their last 3 games. They've just gone and won the game 3-0. Like, if anything, they've extended the goal difference from this week, from last week. Yeah, there was 6 points last week with a plus 3 over Man City, which actually now they're 6 points with a +5. So it ain't actually a bad week, and then what everyone thinks. And look, we've both played Liverpool twice. So it's not like we've both got to play Liverpool again. Yes, we got the crunch game against Man City, and yes, it's going to be a massive game. But if we keep winning our games, then they're the ones that the pressure's on them, because they've got to chase us. So look, Mikel's just got to keep, in my eyes, the players away from all the social media talk, all the tabloid talk, and just take one game at a time. And if we do that, we've got a good chance of winning the league. And look, I haven't seen anything at the moment to say that Man City can go and win all 13, 14 games. I'm not seen it in the slightest. This was the same Man City time that lost to Bodo Glint. Do you know what I mean? This is the same Man City side that drew Brighton at home. Do you know what I mean? This is the same Man City that drew Sunderland away. So, like, they haven't been in big form. Yeah, it's a big result for them, but it's a big ask to expect them to go and win 13 games in a row.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, and just with all the points you've just made, if we just focus on ourselves and we are just concurrent in the fact that we look after number one, which is us, and we win our games, then the 6 points never gets chipped away at. And actually, if we are as good as they are game by game, we can afford to lose to them and still win the league by 3 points. So it really is quite redundant as to what they're doing. We just have to keep holding the same levels that we're doing at the moment. We've got a run of away fixtures now, and 4 of our next 5 games are away from home. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, Smugs, because we've actually been slightly better away from home this season because the away fans are just so patriotic. There's no anxiety amongst the away fans. They just absolutely have it. And normally when we've gone away from home, the home team somewhat feels slightly incumbent to have to kind of step out against us and try and drive a result. And they're not going to go and deploy a low block against us. So for our attackers, it just gives them a little bit more of an option to try and get at them. Hence our away record's been really good this season. So yeah, I think I'm sure you're going to want to get on to actually discussing the Premier League games now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm chill with it.
No, and look, talking about the Premier League games, we're going to go into Leeds first because obviously we was coming off a really, really tough day at Manchester United where we lost 3-2 at home. Then we played the Champions League game, which obviously won 3-2. Bit of a mismatched side against obviously Crate, but it was job done. 8 wins in 8. Can't ask for anything more of the team. But going into that Leeds game up, I know we discussed prior to that it was a massive game, wasn't it? In terms of obviously, did this team have the courage and the bounce back ability? Look, this is a Leeds team that have been very, very good at home. Beat Chelsea at home, drew Liverpool at home, had some really, really top results at home. But what an outstanding performance I've got to add, Jim, because I thought to a man we was absolutely superb that game from start to finish. And the biggest compliment I can give that team on that day was Leeds didn't look like they had anything in terms of reserve to kind of cause us any kind of issues. It was very flat from them. But yet again, do we look at why were they really flat? Or is it because Arsenal Football Club made them really flat?
No, look, I think, look, I know we're going to talk about Gyökeres tonight, and I always want to talk about him, but I think the cardinal difference with the games when he starts games is he does one thing that Jesus doesn't, which is he's incredibly disciplined with 2 things. One is defensive duties, and secondary is his positioning, and he holds the position on his attacking duties both on and off the ball very, very well because he pins both the centre halves and the goalkeeper and plays them in a triangle. And when he's on the pitch, he makes it incredibly difficult for the 2 centre halves to be able to pop the ball on the half turn into the midfield, and also puts them under pressure to play the ball early, which forces the unforced error. And we missed that in the first half of Sunderland, which was why I think it was a little bit flat until the moment of brilliance from Zubimendi, and we started shooting from range quite a lot more. But against Leeds, he did start the game, and they were very tenacious in the work that they did at the top end of the pitch. So they weren't able to get the ball into the midfielders, Stack, and the other guys weren't able to sort of get in and control any tempo. Like, I cannot remember Calvert-Lewin touching the ball in the entire game. I'm not sure if they did get a shot on target or not, but it was, you'd have to check the stats, Smugs, but like it was few and far between. But what we did have in that game though was we just took control of it, and I thought probably maybe bar the Bayern Munich game, that was Madueke's best moment in an Arsenal shirt.
Yeah, he was superb. He was superb. He was doing everything that I've been wanting him to do. That cross for Sunderland's header, what a great goal that was, by the way. Firstly, from obviously the whip cross in, but also like Mendes kind of proving how kind of fallible he is with his heading. I tell you what, like if you looked at him, you wouldn't think that he had it in his locker. But even when he's in defensive midfield, he's up there winning headers and all that. So absolute top player in terms of obviously what he's brought to the side, and from an attacking threat as well as a defensive threat. But I just felt like it was the break that Madueke probably needed. And look, it was unfortunate because Saka got injured in the warm-up. But he had that run, didn't he, prior to Saka coming back, and he pretty much did everything but get himself what he needs, which is the stats, which he needs, the goals and assists to back him up. This is where Saka's really good. He can back it up with like loads of assists. Where I feel Madueke's final ball needs a lot of work to be done, but there seems to be, don't there, a bit of a development in that area over the past few weeks. And look, we see what we've seen what he's capable of. When we was away in Club Brugge, was it when he banged that shot into the top corner? So the guy's got a lot of talent. It's just about how he channels it week in, week out.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously he looks to be the most natural dribbler in the team in the one-on-one, you know, when he's as a touchline winger, because he's so explosive in his acceleration. He's a big boy, so, you know, he's physically very present, but he looks like he gets to top speed pretty quickly and he travels with the ball. But when he comes to the moments areas and he needs an element of composure or just to take a breath, he'd been getting a bit flustered in the games up until, especially in that Man United moment, obviously, where he ran the ball out of play, and a lot of people were sort of crediting him at fault for the third goal because he should have got the ball into the play and then he ran it out and they scored and etc. etc. But in that Leeds game, it looked like an incredibly good reaction to what had happened at United the week before, and you know, he was just consistently, you know, causing them problems. Again, mate, like, you know, his dead ball delivery in the last month's been really, really good. You know, it's not quite at the level of Rice's, obviously, but like it's not a million miles off. You know, it's flat, it curves, it comes in towards the goalkeeper in a really, really nasty spot, because it kind of, like, you know, swings in off that 6-yard box, goal bound, and it's a really hard ball to defend. And then obviously he's, you know, he had the running of his fullback the whole time, and then obviously, you know, and then he comes off. Martinelli comes on the right wing, and he seems to be forming a really nice little bit of chemistry with Gyökeres Martinelli, doesn't he? The two of them seem like they've actually found a nice little partnership there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And look, something else I want to kind of obviously just kind of preach on in terms of the Leeds game before we come off it. Obviously, look, I was pretty critical, weren't I, of Odegaard in our previous show. And look, he did start on the bench, which I ain't gonna lie, I was quite happy with, because I felt that it was kind of needed, and I was quite relaxed that Havertz was given an opportunity, because I think he deserves it, and I think he's got all the credentials to be absolutely a must in that role. But I've got to give my well done to Odegaard, because I thought he come on and controlled the game really superbly in that last 20-25 minutes, and he also got himself on the assist, didn't he, with Jesus' goal, and with that, what an absolute incredible goal that was as well.
Yeah, it was a brilliant goal. Actually, the last two goals were both really, really good team goals, you know, because Odegaard actually plays the pass before the pass to like sort of, it's that sort of, you know, cutty little chip ball into the flank between the fullback and the centre half and puts Martinelli in. And it's almost weighted perfectly, because Martinelli just gets there first, gets a good touch away, and then the fullbacks overexpose themselves, and Martinelli's able to cut back onto his left foot, puts a great cross into the box. You know, Gyökeres in a one-on-one physical battle you know, we've seen him enough. We think he's always going to probably come out on top and gets the volley away and gets enough on it and 3-0. But then, obviously, then game opens up a little bit more, and Odegaard is getting himself in what we believe to be those more customary positions where he's in those nice little pockets where he can affect the game, and pops the ball off to Jesus. Just incredible footwork from Jesus, and we all know his eye test and his technical level is top, but he's very rarely in that position where he's on the edge of the box where he can be so effective. And it's a delightful finish. It's a really, really lovely goal, actually. I know Gyökeres's goal against Inter Milan got goal of the month, but I probably felt Jesus was maybe a little bit hard done by there, because that was a really, really lovely goal. But yeah, it might have been, maybe it's because that goal was in February. Was Leeds right at the end of January, or was it February? I can't remember now. The games happen so quickly, but yeah, mate, it was, and it was a very, very resounding performance. And interestingly, you mentioned Zubimendi. I forgot he'd obviously scored the header as well, because then he goes and scores the first goal against Sunderland, mate. And I tell you what, there can't be many sixes in world football, mate, who score a catalogue of variety of goals as Zubimendi, and as regularly as he scores. I mean, he just seems to be. I've never seen his data at Real Sociedad, but this must be his best goal scoring season ever as a professional.
Yeah, I think he's like. Do you know what? Like, I think he's goal contributions absolutely kind of surprised me as well, because look, when he got pulled in, you thought like, look, he's coming to do the Thomas Partey role. He's going to be anchoring that midfield, dictating the pace, which we expect of him, which he does. But I didn't expect him to be creeping up into areas that he's creeping up into and scoring goals like he's scoring goals. Look, we look at the goal against Aston Villa, mate. That shows you his credentials when obviously Odegaard pushed that threaded ball through to him. And you thought, oh, hello. Do you know what I mean? Like, this guy can get into the box. Look, we'd already seen what he was capable with that unbelievable Nottingham Forest strike. But then you look at the Leeds goal and you see him again. Chelsea, he's in the box again. Like, unbelievable composure to put that in the back of the net. And then what happens? On Saturday, he literally pings one. From outside the box, which, look, first of all, when I was watching it, I was pretty much like, the keeper's obviously made a blunder there. But when I watched it back there, I don't usually give keepers slack for many goals that go in on their front post. But do you know what? I'm going to give the keeper a bit of slack there, because that was an incredible strike. To keep that down as low as he did and ping it the way he did, absolute techers. And this guy just seems to be getting better and better, mate. And we got a little nugget with this little Spanish magician, and that's what I'm going to call him, because I don't think he's getting anywhere near what the capability that he can be. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's going to produce in the colours over the next probably 3 to 5 years, because absolutely incredible signing, and you can see why Liverpool really wanted him, and to pinch him off him was an absolute incredible bit of business by Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, and by way of example, he's played 25 games in the Premier League. He's got 5 goals, 1 assist. He replaced Thomas Partey, which everyone was nervous about. Thomas Partey's got 9 goals and 5 assists in 130 games in the Premier League. So he's already, in 25 games, he's got half of Partey's goal catalogue for Arsenal already. So 6 goals and 2 assists in 30 games at the Arsenal. I mean, I believe that without a shadow of a doubt, he is the signing of the summer, across the Premier League. I just cannot, defensively in his duties, he's very astute positionally. His football IQ is very good. He's very comfortable in possession. His distribution's really good. He makes good runs beyond the midfield and can join in the 8 and get into the attack. For what looks like a fairly small frame of a guy, he seems to be very good in the air and has a great leap on him. He scored volleys. He scored from outside the box. He scored headers. He scored left-footed goals. I mean, he's actually scored goals with like all facets that you can score with. So, I just, I yes, he could have done better with the goal at Man United and he made a mistake. But, mate, these guys aren't robots. You're not going to go your career without the odd mistake here and there. But genuinely, in the main, he has been an absolute resounding success. And, the players that we've added this summer, actually, mate, if you look at it, it's been a pretty successful transfer window as to why we're in the position we're in and why I'm actually just at the moment pretty calm in regards to where we're at and where I think we're going. Gyökeres has added 13 goals and 2 assists now in his first season. I'm convinced, I'm convinced that he's going to get to 20 in all competitions just by record. Yeah, the record of a Mikel Arteta player in a full Mikel Arteta season is 16. Aubameyang and Havertz have both got 16 in a season. So I think I'd be shocked if Gyökeres doesn't get at least another 3 goals. He's got, 22 matches to play. I think he'll get to 20. Zubimendi's come in and raised the level on Partey. Hincapi has been a brilliant addition to left back and left centre half. Kepa's a great backup goalkeeper. I can't think of a better backup goalkeeper in the Premier League. I genuinely can't. Mascaro, whoever scouted him, bloke deserves a medal. 12 million quid for Mascara's mental, mate. If you think about today's day and age in this market. And Madueke is filled in for Saka fine, and we have not seen a massive drop-off in quality. I know Saka's the star boy and, and he's an academy graduate and a great player. But in the main, when Madueke's filled in, he's done a pretty good job, whether it's just been on the very basic level of rotating minutes so other players get rest. But like you said, moments against Club Brugge, had a moment against Bayern Munich, had a phenomenal man of the match game against Liverpool. Against Leeds. He, didn't have his finest hour against Portsmouth with the penalty, but actually had a pretty good game against his fullback. And and he was solid enough without creating a madness against Sunderland at the weekend as well. So I would say that all of the signings this summer, and actually the one I've just left out, I spoke to you about this on the phone last week because we didn't get a chance to do a show, but we speak a lot of the time, as we often do. Mate, I actually believe that when he's had the chance to play, Norgard's been brilliant. Really, really good. I thought he was great in the last Champions League game. I thought that flick around the corner for that Champions League goal was just blew my box off. I did not even know he had the technical level to do something so techie as that. And yes, mate, I've just been very impressed actually with the summer transfer window, and I forgot Eze as well. Look, see, and he has had, maybe he's had a slightly slower start than people expected, because I think everybody's expectation levels is completely unprofounded. Everyone just assumes that you'll just pick up your old form from your old club and it will just literally flash dance into the next club, and it doesn't work like that. New surroundings, new coaches, new teammates, like your daily routine completely changes. Maybe need to move where you live. New journeys to training, new regime. Like a lot of Eze's come from Crystal Palace and probably never played 2 games in 6 days. Now he's got to be part of a match day squad that plays every 3 days. So he still had great moments, still had a phenomenal game against Bayern Munich, was integral in the draw against Man City at home, which I think's proving to be quite vital now, was like fucking incredible against Spurs, and scored a hat-trick in his North London debut. And actually, mate, you were the one who brought this to my attention, and I went and rewatched it, and you said he had a phenomenal cameo against Sunderland, and I didn't really pay that much attention to it. But when I went and watched it back after you told me that, he was very good on Saturday as well, Eze off the bench.
Yeah, I'm really glad you kind of brought him up, because it was actually going to be my next discussion. But I feel that actually that we're actually starting to see a little bit of movement in terms of his kind of cameo performances. And look, he's getting some more game time now. He'll definitely pick up 90 minutes, in my opinion, against Wigan. I think he's by the way, I think he's the perfect cut player to have in your team. He picked up, and to be honest, I'm quite impressed with Mikel Arteta that he didn't take him off in the Chelsea game as well. and kept him on, because that would have done his confidence a world of good. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people that talk about Eze and all that, but as we stated, like literally only about a month ago, like actually before Christmas, he played around 27 games for us, and there was no Odegaard at the time, there was no Havertz at the time. He was playing game in, game out, and look, he probably paid the price a little bit because of that goal we conceded against Aston Villa. But one of the things that always stick out to me, like a lot of my Crystal Palace pals that have obviously supported him through quite a long time, say that he does dip out in and out of form in the winter months. And I'm actually quite excited by that in some ways, because I wonder if Mikel's kind of picked up on that as well and seen that as such. But I think we've got a top plan. If he can click into form, like he did for Crystal Palace last year in those latter months, we could find ourselves with a few more trophies.
Yeah, I agree, and I think all those players deserve a special mention for that. And I think Eze will, this is the depth of the squad now that people like. This is the weird part, because people are turning around and saying, oh, this Arsenal team are not even going to be one of the top 10 sides that have won the Premier League and blah bloody blah and X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, if you look at the squad and the match day squad, and then the players that are missing from the match day squad, on Saturday, mate, the bench was mental. And actually, there's no Dowman, no Marino, no Saka, no Odegaard. And and you're sitting there thinking, Christ alive, like they've now formed some squad Arsenal.
Yeah.
And for people to sort of berate the team and turn around and be like, oh, I can't. What was this narrative? Oh, yeah, never as a team who's won the Premier League not had a player in the front four of an attacking unit or whatever. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, well, look, it's very difficult to fill the striker position because no one has ever done what Haaland's done in the Premier League. So that makes that like somewhat impossible. And who are the other three players then that are that are there? I guess Semenyo be one of them, but and I'm sort of sitting there thinking, and I just sat there and thought, I'm not getting bloody dragged into this nonsense. I'm not getting pulled around about it. From a goal difference perspective, we must be right up there now, like in regards to best goal difference in the league. And I was sitting there thinking, actually, in the Premier League, what's the because in recent games, very, very low key, we have started amassing more and more goals. There you go. So, mate, City, the most exciting team in ever, apparently. They've scored 51 goals, mate. Arsenal, most boring team, going to be the worst Premier League winners. We've scored 49. We've conceded 17. City have conceded 24. Right? So, no... And City, bizarrely, even though I think their defence looks a little bit suspect, have conceded the second least amount of goals in the league. So, and we've got a goal difference of 32, mate. After 25 games, we've got a goal difference of 32.
Look, I know you don't want to be drawing on it too much, but I'm going to ask the question.
Well, I know, and I don't want to get drawn into it, but I keep fucking talking about it. So it's like, but yeah, you're right.
But what I would say is, like, when you look at the averages over the last 2 to 3 seasons, and you look at like how many points that we've collated, how many points Liverpool and Man City collated, it's pretty much like kind of. We're pretty much leading the way, aren't we, in terms of what we've done over the 3 seasons. Like, as long as we keep to kind of rhythm and then keep into kind of to the theme what we've been performing, then for me it's still ours to kind of throw away. Like, I look at the fixtures, yeah, there's some tricky fixtures, but you know what? There is that part of me, mate, that actually thinks I want us to win it, right? The hard way, as such. I want us to be able to get over the line, because I do believe once this team gets over the line, I think this team is going to go on to different levels, because I think that there's so much tabloid talk on it. The social media is absolutely ridiculous, and you think like these players have to go through it week in, week out, have to listen to it week in, week out. That's a lot of pressure. Like I do not think there's another club who's got the pressure on them out there as Arsenal Football Club. And this will prove Mikel Arteta's credentials, because if he can get them over the line, and look, we all know who the narratives are. We all know who leads the way with, like, look, we only had to watch Sky Sports on Sunday evening to see it with your bare eyes. That like everyone's made their mind up now that Man City are going to win the league. And this is after last week, Arsenal still with the same amount of points with a less goal difference. We had Jamie Redknapp saying the league's done. Do you know what I mean? So it's a big job, but I do feel for the players. I've got to be honest here, because they've got the whole weight on their shoulders in terms of the anxiety of Arsenal fans, because what's happened over the years, not just over the last 2-3 years, mind you. Let's be honest, we've been in title races 2000, 2007, 2008. Was it 2010, 2011, I think, as well? We was in one, 2015, 2016 with Leicester. And then you look at the last 3 title races. Look, last year, it weren't a title race for me. Liverpool had won it out of canter by start of March. But there is a lot of pressure on these players. There's a lot of pressure on these players to be that team. And I know I said the other week that, look, if you want to be remembered of having a legacy at this football club, get us over the line. But I do feel they've got so much pressure on them, and it's going to take a monumental effort from Mikel Arteta just to kind of ground them and take that all the way from them. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, in actual fact, I think that it's more difficult for I think it's more difficult for Arsenal to play at home than it is for them to play away, which I sort of alluded to a little bit earlier, because I can sense a little bit more the atmosphere is a little bit more vulnerable amongst the home fans, and there's a bit more anxiety, you know, until we get the first goal, than there is away from home, where the fans are just, you know, doing everything they possibly can to sort of say, in our 3,000 person allocation, there's 30,000 in the stadium here. We've got to make ourselves a 10x so that we can make our boys know that we're here. And I actually, you know, I think the atmosphere in the away games, I've been to one this year, you know, is electric, incomparable to those where, you know, really I would probably go as far as to say I think the anxiety is more amongst the fan base than it is amongst the players. I think the players will be incredibly focused. I think, you know, enough of them now, Smugs, have been around exactly what we're having to do now, which is go and get over the line. And, you know, they always say, don't they, that, like, be careful of a woman scorned, you know, and in the same sense that, you know, yes, you're right. We weren't in a title challenge last year, and they'll know they weren't good enough, but we were sort of going through a mini rebuild, which we've implemented this year with all the signings from the summer. But the 2 years prior, you know, we should have won the league at least one of those occasions, and we didn't, you know, and we let City, well, in one of them, like, we threw away a 9-point lead with 6 games to go, or 6 points with 6 games to go, whatever it was. And then, you know, the second one went down to the wire, you know, when obviously Spurs kind of bent over for City. But, you know, in that regard, they know that they've been close, and hopefully all of them have been all of them have been in and around this feeling and this situation previously, and they know how to handle it more. And what's so interesting this year is the evolution of the squad, because, mate, if you'd have thought in the last 3 years we'd have gone into a Sunderland side that are a proper football team, by the way, top half of the table, you know, got a draw against us earlier on in the season, and we had no Saka and no Odegaard, we'd have been shitting our pants as to who's going to fill in. You know, we would have really been nervous. And it's credit to the squad. It's not about the detriment or are Saka and Odegaard good enough. It's the credit to the squad that there is more than enough ammunition in it now to be able to replace both those players, and the standards don't drop. And I would say that I think that's probably the cardinal thing that is different now to the most previous years, where I would probably say there's only maybe one player in that team that I think you would probably lose a bit of a dynamic, and you'd have to change the structure of how the team operated in order to replace him, and that's Declan Rice. Because I think Saliba and Gabriel have both had little pockets where they've been out for 2-3 weeks this season, and Hincapié, Mosquera, Calafiori, Timber, Ben White, you know, in all fairness to them, have been able to fill in and taken us through periods where we've not conceded shots on target, let alone goals. So Declan Rice would probably be the one where, you know, we would immediately lose like an incredibly dangerous asset in dead balls, but I think we'd lose like a bit of a leader on the pitch and someone who plays with that tenacity. But it doesn't mean that we'd start losing games by any means. We just had to slightly change the way in which we structured the games, and make amends for not having him in the team. But he rested him for Forest at home, mate, didn't he? And brought Marino in with Zubimendi. Obviously, we've got no Marino, but he brought Marino in, and we beat them 3-0. So, you know, it is possible as well.
Just going on to the Mikel Marino, because obviously that is a big loss, isn't it? Obviously, we decided that probably there was no one out there adequate enough to come in within the window to kind of support in that role, which didn't really surprise me, if I'm being frankly honest here. But it is a big loss, isn't it? Because when you start looking at like games like Wigan on Saturday and the cup games, it does help ease that pressure, don't it, on Declan Rice and Zubimendi. And he was doing what he needed to do in them games as well. Like, I thought he had a really good January, if I'm being totally honest.
Who's that?
Mikel Marino.
Yeah, you know, he's actually started to show this season how much more value he offers the team as a midfielder, more so than just as like an alternative false nine. Because I think his understanding of the pace of the league is now a lot better. And technically he's on a really good level. He always looks to move the ball forward. He's a great box crasher. And he seems to be somebody who actually is very good at picking up important goals. I used to think the same with Gilberto Silva when we were in that magic moment around the early 2000s. He always used to sort of didn't score loads and loads of goals, but always seemed to be important ones. And yeah, so you know, he's a very accomplished footballer, Marino, and he's going to be a miss. But you know, I fully trust that the squad are able to manage the load and replace his minutes, and and hopefully they can still secure at least 1, 2, 3 medals for him come the end of the season. But yeah, no, he has been a good servant to Arsenal for sure, and a good signing.
Yeah, definitely. And look, let's look ahead to games coming up. Obviously Thursday, Brentford away. Look, they've got 2 absolutely incredible results when you look at it. An away win against Aston Villa with 10 men for more than 45 minutes, which I thought was an incredible performance. Went to Newcastle the other night on a Saturday night, which is never easy for anyone, as we know, and beat them 3-2. I know Newcastle are not in a great moment at the moment, but they still went out there and beat them. Look, I think there's a little bit of too much fear about it, if I'm being totally honest with you, Jim. I think people are looking at Brentford this year in terms of how well they're doing, and look, that no one's more surprised than me. Like, I had, to be honest with you, Brentford as one of my relegation candidates at the start of the season. Didn't think Keith Andrew would do the job which he's produced there, which is absolutely remarkable. So obviously fair dues to him, but I was having, you know me, I like to look at my stats, and I was looking at Brentford's home form, and I think people are missing a trick here. That in 2026 they have drawn with Tottenham 0-0. This is a really struggling Tottenham side. They did draw with Leeds at home 1-0, and they did lose to Nottingham Forest 2-0. So I think they're much more of an away team than a home team, mate.
Yeah, I think also though, if you look across the course of their season at home, I think they've only lost 2 games, drawn 2, which I think you just mentioned, but they've won 9. And the teams that they've actually beat at home are quite impressive. You know, like the teams that they've got results against are, you know, they're no mugs. They're proper teams. So, you know, by no means is it going to be a walk in the park. This, but then nor was Sunderland and nor was Leeds. So, you know, you just have to set yourself up, be patient, be astute, and you know, and just, you know, stick to your game plan and get the job done. And I do want to come on to with this game how you would set yourself up on selection, because I am really keen, Smugs, to talk to you about this sort of number 9 debate at Arsenal, because just to finish off this fan thing, you know, and obviously in the main, the options we have at number 9 are obviously Victor Gyökeres, Gabriel Jesus, and Kai Havertz. And I think really until probably the weekend, you know, when you scroll through Twitter and you look at people's 11s for Saturday, I just keep scrolling through them and I just see Havertz, Jesus, Havertz. You know, and it's rare that you're falling on someone's team with Gyökeres in the 9. And I just I really am interested, mate, what you think people see or don't see, because if I'm being honest, I think the fan base have just been completely manipulated and just pulled pillar to post by some ludicrous kind of media outlets who are talking about Gyökeres and have convinced themselves that he's a flop, or he's been a flop, or he doesn't offer Arsenal anything, or this, that, and the other. Because I want to just get your opinion on it before I share mine, because I'm genuinely concerned that I'm watching a completely different game, mate. Yeah, because like I just don't. I would say the majority of our fan base don't want him at the club more so than do, and I don't know why.
If I'm being totally honest, yeah, I think that the narrative of certain parts of the media have been a massive part of it. Obviously, we discussed it on previous shows. I think that maybe the plan, which is quite interesting, has been said by Mr. Arsenal podcast on here. I'll just get it up. And I do believe this because I remember this being mentioned. I believe Kai's injury scarpered what Arteta was potentially thinking of doing prior to the season started. There was a lot of talk about Kai playing that advanced midfield role, which I 100% believe he was brought into this club to do. I think he was shoehorned into the number 9 because there was nothing else once Gabriel Jesus got injured, and he did a job. Look, he didn't do a great job. He did a good job. He did a job for us. Do you know what I mean? But I think people have got to start reflecting a little bit differently with Gyökeres. And the reason why I say that is, look, the guy has got, am I right in saying 15 goals at the moment?
No, 15 goal contributions.
So 13 goals, 15 goal contributions. First season in the Premier League with, let's be honest, you, a really, really struggling side in terms of attacking play. Look,
chance creation.
Yeah, let's not beat around the bush here, yeah, right? This has probably been our worst. We're sitting top of the league by 6 points, but it's probably been our worst season in terms of chance created, XG, as you well called it. Look, I still watch most weeks, and we still are outdoing people with XG, but look, it's very low if we're being totally honest with you every week, because we don't concede chances. So that's probably the reason why we're still outdoing teams. But I just feel with Gyökeres at the moment, yeah, right? He still needs that big moment, right? He needs that big goal. And look, I think one thing that we do know about this guy, like from his days at Sporting, he turns up in the big games. Do you know what I mean? He turns up in their cup finals. He turns up when he's needed. He turned up against Chelsea in the League Cup semi-final. I think Havertz is the key to him. I don't think I know. Havertz is the key to Gyökeres, yeah, right? And I don't even think Havertz is the key to Gyökeres. I think Havertz is the key to Saka as well. And I'm really, really intrigued to see Saka come back and see that partnership of Kai, Saka, and Gyökeres in that same team, because I think we'll see a total different team. And look, we've seen it already, mate. Like let's just rewind back to Sunderland game on Saturday. The guys on the pitch, 6 minutes, yeah. Havertz is in the box, pulls it square, bang, goal. Mate, me and you both know, right? And look, it's not me digging out Odegaard, but Odegaard's not going to be in that position whatsoever. Odegaard's going to be about 30 yards from goal, trying to thread a ball through. And this is what Victor hasn't had. He hasn't had any presence in the box with him, right? But now you've got centre back sitting there thinking, shit, I've got to deal with Gyökeres, but then I'm dealing with a 6'3" guy playing attacking midfield. Look, he can play the 9 role, he can play the 8 role, he can play the 10 role, he can play any of them roles inside out. And I think that's an absolute gold mine for us, And I don't see any other team in any form of football that has that ultimate player who can play them 3 roles so comfortably. You tell me another player in world football that can play them 3 roles as comfortably as Kai Havertz can. I think it was a genius signing bringing Kai Havertz into this club. Look, he come under a lot of scrutiny when he come into this club, like most ex-Chelsea players. But I feel with this guy, yeah, right. He's the difference between us winning the league and not winning the league. And I'll be totally honest, yeah, if we don't have Kai Havertz fit, I would be concerned. But if we've got Kai Havertz fit, I think it's a total different ball game. And I think you get to see the best out of Victor Gyökeres. And look, you can see his confidence blooming already. Like, you know what they've got between them already? You can sense it. They've got that bro love between them. And I know you might laugh at that, but
no, I thought it was. Look, I just like me, mate, and I like to back you up with stats as well, right? And I said something on the last pod to you, didn't I, about creativity? And I was talking about Victor Gyökeres now has got an XG in an Arsenal shirt of 12.45. He scored 13 goals. One of the most interesting stats I heard on the Sunday supplement this week was he has scored 8 goals from 14 shots on target. If he gets shots away on target, his conversion rate is mental. You know, he's got like a 60% conversion rate from shots on target. So, you know, and I thought just on that point about Havertz, you know, sorry, and I said on the last pod, Smugs, didn't I? So it's quite obvious for me that he is actually scoring the amount of goals expected from him. So what's not so important is Gyökeres going to get to 20 goals or 25 goals? It's more about, can the team find a way of getting his XG by the end of the season to 25, 30? Because as it stands, just like Haaland, in fact, funnily enough, their actual conversion from XG is almost identical. It's just that Haaland's XG is 23 and he's got 23 goals in all competitions, and Gyökeres is 12.4 and he's got 13 in all competitions. Yeah. So if we can get his XG by the 20th of May to 30, the data tells you he'll score 30 goals, you know? So, and I do believe that you're absolutely on the money, that Havertz is an integral part in doing that. And there's 2 things that tell me as for why. 3 things, actually, because I'll come back to your point. I totally agree with you in the first of all. I believe he signed Kai Havertz to play at the top of a 3 in midfield. He is a great box crasher. He's a very natural finisher. He's a good penalty taker. He's a very good header of the football. He's got an incredible football IQ. Like, reminds me so much of Ozil with his football IQ. It must be a German thing, right? But I think his football IQ is really, really good. He's a big game player, Havertz. Always pulls up in big moments, you know, has done for his country, has done for Chelsea, has done for Leverkusen, has done for Arsenal, and does not shy away from the big moments whatsoever. And you're right. And the other thing you said was, I'm adamant that he was signed to play in the midfield. The second thing was, it was so noticeable when they signed Gyökeres and immediately flew him out to Asia. The biggest embrace he had in the tunnel was with Havertz, and the two of them naturally looked like they resonated to one another, that they wanted to be friends with each other, right? They're a very similar age. I think they're both 27. No one knows if they've ever played junior football with or against each other or whatever, but they seem and in the pre-season tour where I thought Havertz looked like he started because he finished the season quite well when he come back from injury and scored on the final day of the season, and then in the pre-season tour, do you remember, mate, even though Havertz was fit, more often than not, they actually played Marino as the false nine in the pre-season games. And there was a couple of goals that Marino scored where Havertz just laid the ball off on a plate to him, just so nonchalantly. I remember one goal specifically on the edge of the box. Havertz dribbled the ball into space, dropped his shoulder, and popped the ball like a perfect weight, so Marino could just go straight onto it, struck it left-footed into the bottom left-hand corner, and um, and and I. And he did that for Gyökeres against Sunderland at the weekend, where it was a great pass from Trossard, slip him in, and he just puts the ball perfectly across Gyökeres. So Gyökeres, who's been criticised for his first touch is actually really, really good because it's just perfectly taken it away from the defender. It just looks a little bit convoluted because his left foot slips a little bit in the ground, so he has to adjust himself and strike the ball as he's falling down. But you and I keep saying this about what incredible shot power Gyökeres has got. It's just like, keepers can get hands to it all they like, but if it's coming at you at that speed, right, it's just impossible to deflect it wide of the goal. And he gets his shot away, perfectly. And I agree with you. I think Havertz will be absolutely integral in the closing months. I think teams are starting to fatigue now because they've got 30 games in their legs and they've got another 20 to play. So I think that will benefit Gyökeres, because remember when I spoke to somebody who'd coached him before, I'm not going to name him, but I had a long conversation with someone who coached him, and I actually remember speaking to a Sporting fan on X, and they said very much the same thing, that from a physical specimen as an athlete, it is an incredible, like his metabolic rate in order to be able to keep running through an entire season. And I think he will remain really fit. And I think teams will start to fatigue. Games will mean more because results are more in the second half of the season become more integral, i.e. some teams that are nothing games put less effort in, and some teams who have to get a result from the game are going to have to change their style, which is going to create more pockets of space for Gyökeres. And the final thing is now he's played all these teams before, so he now knows the way in which they're going to adapt a style against him. His movement looks a little bit sharper. And I wouldn't be surprised, mate. I was trying to work it out earlier. You've got most of February left, March, April, and May. I wouldn't be surprised. You normally play about 7 games a month, 6 games a month. It wouldn't surprise me if he scored 3 to 4 goals a month, which on top of where he's at the moment would take him to like 25, 26 in all competitions. And anybody who thinks that that's not a phenomenal return for a striker in their first season is absolutely mental, mate. Like mental. It'd be, if he gets over 20 goals in all competitions, it's just an incredible return. But what he's also doing over and above that is he's also doing all the things he was doing really well before that were going unnoticed. His hold-up play is getting better. His touch looks a little bit sharper. As an athlete, he definitely looks quicker, more explosive over 5 yards. And I tell you one thing that he does that really irritates me about Jesus, and I'm not sure if I was telling you this on the phone. I think I might have been telling my friend Bilal, actually. We were chatting about Arsenal earlier on. And I said, the thing that irritates me the most is Jesus seems to get called offside 2, 3, 4 times a game when he starts a match and plays at least 60 minutes. I cannot remember the last time Gyökeres was flagged offside. I genuinely can't. I'd love someone in the chat or whoever to sort of come up with the last time. And what he does in the second goal where he puts the afterburners on, keeps up with Martinelli with consummate ease, albeit Martinelli's dribbling with the ball and he's got someone around him. But he's right up with a run of play and he just very slightly checks his run because Martinelli holds on to it for a touch too long, which probably takes him away from a goal scoring chance himself, just to make sure that he's definitely onside to tuck it away. And some of those very intuitive moves from a goal scoring striker, you can't coach stuff like that. It just comes very natural to people who are drawn to scoring goals. And nothing that I've seen about him doesn't make me think that he just won't be a significant success at the Arsenal. And you've got to remember, mate, in the last season or two, it's not been our results against the big six that have been the issue that have stopped us winning the league. It's these games in Januaries and Februaries where we've dropped points to the West Hams, the Fulhams, the equivalent Sunderland, whomever it may be, and we've not been able to break them down and score goals in important moments. And he got the goal against Leeds, which put that task completely to bed. You know, Zubimendi got the breakthrough against Sunderland, but they were in the ascendancy a bit, and we weren't great for the first 10 minutes of the second half. He comes on and shuts that tie off, right, against Sunderland. And things like that, mate, you know, they're big moments. And people are criticising him and saying he looks clunky and he X, Y, and Z and this, that, and the other. Well, he's been in an Arsenal team now that is top of the league by 6 points, is the first team ever to set a record for winning 8 from 8 in the Champions League, for which he scored 4 goals in 6 games in the Champions League. And he's got a goal and assist in a semi-final cup tie that's got Arteta finally out of this rut of not getting past semi-finals and got us in a final in March. So, you know, you can kind of put all this criticism stuff together and get drawn into this ridiculous narrative from the media. But actually, Smugs, is he actually on the polar opposite of that? Is he a significant difference maker to why we're having the success we're having this season?
I think that when you look at the trend he's going, there's a very upward trend. And I think, like, when you talk about 13 goals and obviously 15 goal contributions, I think we're rightly banging the money to say, look, there's no reason to not to believe that he can't hit 25 this season. Like, when you just start looking at the amount of games there are still remaining, look, we're still in the FA Cup. We've got a good game against Wigan on Sunday. I'm not sure whether he'll come in on that game, but if he does come on that game, he might want to fill his boots for the last half hour. Do you know what I mean? You're looking at all the Champions League games that we've got. We could potentially have up to, is it like 7 or 8 games potentially, like something ridiculous like that? And then you've got
another 6, 7, 8, yeah.
Yeah, you got a League Cup final, and then you've got another 13 Premier League games on top of that. Now, as I said, like, I'm really, really intrigued to see Saka come back into this team, because actually, like, he, for me, he's another player that needs to step up in the last few months and show his true form, because we know that Bukayo Saka is much better than what he has shown over the course of the season. We know that. We've seen it from him. Do you know what I mean? Like, hopefully his goal contributions in terms of getting goals will improve as the season filters out. But I don't know. I just see something with Kai Havertz, right, in playing in that role, and see the areas that he kind of occupies. And I thought, you know what? I can see Saka really, really enjoying playing with these two, like, up there, because actually there's 2 of them that are going to kind of take away space now. Where when you've got a midfield of Zubimendi, Rice, and Odegaard, I just feel like you've got a 3-man midfield, mate. And I feel like there ain't really no one busting a gut to get into that box, go and support that striker. Do you know what I mean? Look, we know what Zubimendi is. He's a controller. Declan Rice is a box-to-box, but he's never going to get you the outlet that you're going to get more than 10 goals out of him in a season, I would have thought. And obviously, Odegaard, for me, has gone backwards, not forwards. But I do think there is a big role for Odegaard in terms of coming on in games, last 15, 20, 25 minutes, especially when we're winning games, and just literally knocking that pace out of the game. Do you know what I mean? And just kind of getting us over the line in games. And look, Mikel talks about starters and finishers. And at the moment, whether people like it or not, for me, Martin Odegaard's a finisher. He finishes games for me. Look, we don't need to see Kai Havertz for 90 minutes. But what I would like to see, mate, and this might be a little bit hard and harsh on Jesus at times, I'll probably, if I'm being totally honest with you, mate, if I'm looking at games and just say we're only one goal up, I don't want Jesus coming on in the game because I would expect either Victor or Kai to come off. And if Victor comes off for whatever reason, Kai pushes up top. Because me and you have watched games over this season. I'll utilise Wolves as a standing point of a game that I can remember, that where Victor come off and we totally lost everything that he was offering us. And then we just totally kind of fell back into a defensive situation as a team and then conceded. Look, we were lucky we got that goal in injury time. But I do think that, look, he's going to have to rotate the squad carefully. I think Jesus is the kind of player that you'll bring on in games with, like, the game's done and dusted. You're 2-0 up, you're 3-0 up. Bring Jesus on. You'd have a field day. Do you know what I mean? Look, I know we spoke about before, but have a quick chat on it before we go into the Ask Jim. Like, you wouldn't mind seeing Jesus on the left hand side of the free. I wouldn't be adverse to that myself. Something that I said, but I just feel that actually in games when we've taken off Victor and brought on Jesus, especially when the games are really tight, they become even more tighter for us because we haven't got someone up there to hold that ball up. And I don't think he's been appreciated for what he actually has offered this team up till now. But I'm really, really pleased that he is starting to score. I'm really, really pleased that he is starting to make people turn their heads a little bit. And he's shutting people up, basically. And that's what he's got to do. But I don't see 5 goals as being impossible this season.
Mate, and I think... Look, I think 20 is very reasonable. I think 25 will 25 will be very impressive. But I just, whilst you were just talking then, I just wanted to take a handful of interesting players. Obviously not Thierry. Like Thierry's record was mental. But Gyökeres is in a bit of an unfortunate situation because the only person that anyone as a goal scoring striker gets compared to now in the Premier League is Haaland, right? Who if he just stays at Man City will break every single record known to man in the Premier League, and then obviously beyond that you're going through a regime at the moment with Mbappe, who I guess that they're not going to be Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, but the two of them are like just doing mental numbers in comparison. But just to give you 3 people, mate, who I think, well, they're all Premier League Hall of Famers, right? Wayne Rooney, Robin van Persie, and Didier Drogba. If you'd have signed any of those players as a 26-year-old this summer, right, your fan base and the media would go absolutely mental. Yeah. I mean, Didier Drogba has scored over 20 goals for Chelsea, 2 in 8 seasons. Yeah. Robin van Persie in 11 seasons in the Premier League, 8 at Arsenal, 3 at Manchester United, has scored over 22 goals in a season 3 times in all competitions. Yeah. Wayne Rooney, Premier League legend, arguably the greatest Premier League player of all time, has scored over 25 goals 3 times in 13 seasons at Man United. Do you know what I mean, mate? Like, you're not, like, the expectations of these players, of this fan base, of what they just assume in his first season, right, is mental. Henry, in his first season at Arsenal, scored 26 goals in all comps. In his second season, scored 22 goals in all comps in 46 and 52 games. And then he obviously goes berserk. It's not, mate, it's this ain't fucking FIFA, Smugs. Do you know what I mean? It's not that easy to go and do these sorts of levels of numbers, So I would say, and a very interesting stat that come out on the Sunday supplement this week was after 32 games, Gyökeres has 13 goals for Arsenal, Henry had 12 and Bergkamp had 11. Now, I'm not comparing him to the 2 greatest players who've ever come out of this football club, but actually, if you take away all of the nonsense in the media that exists now, never existed in our day and age. You used to be able to watch stuff on teletext, read a paper once a day, and you'd watch Match of the Day of a Saturday evening, right? But if you take away all of this nonsense where people are just hunting for clicks and media and narrative and debates, yeah, I would say actually he has done just fine. He's pretty much there or thereabouts, like 1 in 2. And if he gets to 50 games, 52 games at the end of the season and has 24, 25 goals, it would have just, and we've won 1, 2, 3 trophies. It would have been a phenomenal signing. It would have been everything that we wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I totally agree. And look, only time will tell. Do you know what I mean? What we'll pick up in terms of kind of silverware and trophies, but look, we're getting to the business end of the season now, aren't we? The games come thick and fast. The tournaments come thick and fast. We got a League Cup final to look forward to against Man City, who've been the best team in England for probably the last 10 years, if and but the Liverpool successes. But look, it's a time to make that statement, isn't it? Like, before I go into the Ask Jim, I just got one other question for you, because it's been kind of wrangling at me a little bit, but I keep hearing it, and I'm not sure if I really agree with it. Do you think, and I don't really agree with this, if I'm being totally honest with you, do you think that the outcome of the League Cup final will have a big bearing on terms of the rest of the season?
I heard Ali McCoy talk about this, funnily enough, on Talk Sport. And I'm just going to tell you what he said, because I think actually it was the best way that you could analyze it. And I couldn't say it better than myself. And he said, if Arsenal beat Manchester City in the League Cup final, they will set a precedent that they are there and like they are champions elect, and now winning trophies is well and truly within their ecosystem. And if they lose it, it will galvanize the squad, and very similar to the Man United game, they will get so close to tasting success that if it's taken away from them, they will not let that happen again, and they will go on and win major honours this season. So in that regard, I actually agree with him, and I believe that for us, it's a bit more of a shot for nothing. I do believe that winning the League Cup will be a really, really, really important facet, and give all of them a day at Wembley and let them know that they're only 2 months away from enjoying a monumental season, and that will really help. But I don't believe that a League Cup loss against Manchester City, when you basically play them another 2 weeks later, 2.5 weeks later, will decimate the squad, and all the hard work and all of the like everything that's built up to that moment will just go out the window just based on 1 90-minute match. So I think Mikel Arteta will find a positive in whatever the result that day.
Like in terms of my opinion, like I think it's a big day. I think it's more of a bigger day for the fans. And that's strange to saying this, right? But I think that it's the fans that need to kind of ease up a little bit. And look, I'll include myself in that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it'd be more bigger for us if we can get over the line in the League Cup, because, and I've said this from day dot, that I actually think, that we just need to get over the line. Do you know what I mean? But I look at the League Cup and I look at these players, and they'd be absolutely like over the moon to win the League Cup, but like it's not going to be what their ambition is overall. Do you know what I mean? Their ambition is to win the Premier League and the Champions League, but I just think it will potentially, just maybe calm the fan base down a little bit if we can get over the line against Manchester City and just ease it up. The final games at the Emirates, because look, we look at these games that we got at the Emirates in April and May, and look, they are all winnable games, but. And there's a big but. I've been there, mate, when we drew 3-3 with Southampton in that game. Do you know what I mean? No game is a gimme, especially when you get to April, May, because you've got teams fighting for their lives. So I just feel that actually it might ease that anxiety a little bit within the stadium. And seeing that the team have got over the line already, might give them more confidence into thinking, do you know what? We're not going to blow this. Because I still feel, right, and you've seen it massively from the weekend, that people are panicking because Man City have somehow, and let's be honest, they somehow got a win at Liverpool. Like it didn't look like it was happening for 83, 85 minutes. But look, Alisson does Alisson does an absolute crazy thing.
Yeah, that is mental, by the way. That is
Yeah.
fucking mental.
And we could be looking at that at the end of the season as like a determined outcome. Hopefully, it won't be. But this ain't. I'm sorry, this is not the Man City team that I remember. The Kevin De Bruyne, mate, the era, mate. Like the Gundogans, the Carl Walkers. Like I look at this
Mate,
team.
and this is exactly what Noel Gallagher said. He said, like, he was like, the league's finished. Like, it's done. Like, we're not good enough. This is a Man City team in transition. This is not the spine of a Man City team. This doesn't look like a Man City team that's won it in previous years. You know, Arsenal are significantly more complete. He's like, we're not. He said exactly that. He says, yeah, the last 10, 12 minutes of the game were exhilarating, great for the neutral, great for the City fan. But the 75 minutes before that, we were completely not at the races. Haaland had another completely flat day, erased by one spot kick where he scored the decisive goal, but should have scored in the first 5 minutes when he went clean through on goal. Toe poked at Alisson. No composure there. Didn't really do anything in the game by that. He said he's been flat. He hasn't scored an open play for 12 games. Where's the Haaland criticism for the no open play goals, or all this data that's coming out about X, Y, and Z? Where's Phil Foden? He's fallen off a cliff. Where's he gone?
Exactly.
They replaced Phil Foden in January. Supposed to be one of his best starts to a season ever with Semenyo. So don't get me wrong. I think they've got brilliant players in their team. I think this lad Cherky looks a phenomenal player. They've picked him up for less than 30 million quid. I cannot. He looks to me like the closest thing they've ever got to replacing Riyad Mahrez. But you're right. You talk. Kevin De Bruyne is one of the greatest players to ever play in the Premier League. Whether we like to admit it or not, he is. So you just can't replace a player like that. You've got to try and recreate what he was able to do, maybe with 1, 2, or 3 players. Bernardo Silva, he's got to be coming towards the latter ends of his legs. Rodri, to me, has just not looked like the same player since the 2 injuries that he's had. I look at their defence. They've got a central midfielder playing left back. They've got a defensive midfielder playing right back. This Kusanov was never signed for them to be a starting centre half. Gay's folded straight in there. They've got. Well, where's John Stones?
He's on the way back currently.
Yeah, okay. Right. And obviously Diaz come on at the weekend, and he's just come back from an injury. The only one, and I said this to you at the start of the season, that will go under the radar, mate, Donnarumma is proper. He is proper, like top goalkeeper. And obviously off that McAllister shot, that was a defining moment. That's parity almost with the Raya save against Brighton. How good that was. In that moment, and I do think that they have got a top goalkeeper now. And when you look at goalkeeper moments, Donnarumma basically keeps City in the tie, and Alisson. Honestly, mate, I've watched that back like 15, 20 times. I cannot, if he's walking into a Ferguson dressing room, mate, he gets battered black and blue. That is the most obscene thing I've seen from like a seasoned professional goalkeeper who's won everything, because that ball is motoring. There is absolutely no way the player can keep it on the field of play. Impossible. Like it would be a 1 in 200 touch to be able to keep that in, and even if he has, you could just stand him up and jump on it then. It is mental that he's just thrown a leg at him there, mate. Crazy.
Absolutely. Look, we are coming to the end of the show, so we have got a couple of questions to kind of.
I do want to ask you one thing, Smugs, before you do ask Jim, because we've got Brentford on Thursday night, mate, and we normally always do this. And yours recently on the on the socials have been absolutely bang on. So I'm going to ask you a question. I want your starting 11 for the Brentford game on Thursday night.
It's simple. Do you know what? I'm going to bring one surprise that I'll do for Thursday night. It's not really a surprise, but it will be. I'm going to go with, obviously, Raya in goal, Timber right back, Saliba Gabriel, Calafiori, I think, will start left back.
Yeah, but this is your team. Are you choosing Calafiori?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. I am still. I know it's harsh because he had a good game in Cafe. Mate, I'm not fussed which one of them starts. That's the biggest compliment I can give the pair of them.
Yeah.
I just think that at the moment, I think he'll try to go back to that traditional back four that he started with at the start of the season. But we'll wait and see. But that's what I think. Look, the midfield, Sumendi, Rice, and Havertz. I'd start Martinelli on the left on Thursday. I see Trossard had some muscle spasm. I think night game under the lights. I don't think Brentford are particularly the most like loud team that you're going to have. Look, they're a good team, but like it's not going to be a stadium that's going to intimidate you whatsoever. So I'm probably going to go Madueke, Martinelli, and Gyökeres. But actually, I do think he'll start Trossard. And I'll tell you why, because I think he really, really likes Martinelli coming on the right. And I just want to say, like what an impact he's had on the right, mate, since he's come on in. And like, I know we spoke about Martinelli earlier on, but we haven't really spoke about him going over to that right hand side. And he's had so much kind of profit from playing out on the right hand side in the last few weeks.
Massive. It's a great point. I think he's been brilliant when he's filled in on the right hand side. And I think it's been monumental to the development of his relationship with Gyökeres, because I think Gyökeres is used to playing with wingers who play the natural side to their natural foot, i.e., right-footed players on right-hand sides and left on left. So I wouldn't even be adverse to him starting Martinelli on the right and Trossard on the left. I think you're right. Gyökeres is going to start Premier League games now. I think he's banging form. I think Jesus has started a couple, and he's just struggled. And knowing Mikel and knowing how overcoached he likes the team to be, and how disciplined he likes them to be, Jesus getting flagged offside on 2, 3, 4 occasions will properly irritate him. That will wind him up. So I can see Gyökeres starting that game and Jesus starting against Wigan, and then Gyökeres probably getting a pretty big rest against Wigan, unless it's absolutely essential he gets required, i.e. for some reason they're winning the game or we've not got the game shut out after 70 minutes. And then he plays the Thursday night against Wolves and the Sunday against Spurs. I think the only things I would change from that is if he does go with Madueke, I would start Martinelli on the left wing, and I would. Utara is a bit of a handful to manage, and he is pretty quick. So I would actually probably go with Hincapi at left back. I don't think Calafiori is in his best light against pace, so I think Hincapi deals with it a lot better. So I would I'd go with Hincapi at left back. But yes, mate, I've also got an Ask Jim privately message to me from a very, very special young lad who will be coming with me to the League Cup final, and he's one of my oldest school friends, Dave. His little boy Artie has said, Jim, do you think the majority of Arsenal fans would prefer the Premier League or the Champions League trophy, given the choice if you've got to pick one or the other? What a brilliant question from a 10-year-old, 9-year-old. I think in my heart of hearts that the majority of the Premier League would prefer... the majority of the Arsenal fans would prefer to win the Premier League. I still believe that the domestic division, to be the best team in your country, is still amongst, like, if you asked 100 fans, 51 would still say they would want to be Premier League champions. It's also because we've not won it for like 20 years. I do think if we win it this season, that then like everybody goes on to the Champions League side. Like then it's like it is the missing one. But I think for Arteta just to break his back and win one of the big two, I think, Smugs, that people want the Premier League first. What do you think?
Yeah, I need to see the Premier League. I can't bottle out the Premier League after this year. For me, it's the Premier League, then the Champions League. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm not really bought that we'll win the Champions League this year. If I'm being totally honest, I think there's quite a lot to expect this team to fall out on both trophies when they haven't won anything for the last, like, let's be honest, we haven't won nothing big since 2004, and then we expect them to pick up the title and the Champions League in the same year. I just think that's too much to ask from them. So for me, if we can win the Premier League this year, it'd be a great statement in England. And then I think we got the manager, and I think we got the players that we can go and win the Champions League. I just feel that we might need something a little bit different, especially on that left hand side.
Yeah,
Trying to go one step further in the Champions League.
I agree with you. I think we might just need one high-profile player,
Yeah,
like in the attack, just one more.
Alvarez.
I think, yeah, or a Rafael Leao, or there's a big rumor that Vinicius will leave Real Madrid this summer. Like someone like that would just be incredible. Yeah, so like mate, I got to say, a couple of weeks ago we were heavily linked with Anthony Gordon, and I think at the time I thought that was probably quite exciting. But I've watched Martinelli in the last few weeks, and I don't think that Anthony Gordon is better than Martinelli.
It's not
I
the
think
upgrade we
he's
need, mate.
no. I think if you're going to replace that left hand side, you need to go like balls to the mast and drop a whopper.
Yeah. Right, next question. It says for both me and you. I'm just going to let you do it. I think it's an easy answer. We've spoke about it. In the number 10 role, who would you start, bench, and sell?
I would sell Odegaard because I still think he's probably got quite good stock. I would bench Eza and I would start Kai Havertz.
Pretty much bang on with me. Next question. If you had a pet parrot, what would you teach it to say? Up the Arsenal.
Yeah, but it's got to be like a one-worder or a two-worder, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
If I had a pet parrot, what would I teach it to say? So Campbell's won the double.
Love that one. And if you could only wear one kit for the rest of your life, which kit would it have been?
Blue away shirt, JVC Nike, with the red band and the lightning bolts, Bergkamp 10 on the back.
Yes.
And actually, mate, I think I sent it to you earlier this week. Have you seen the images for the blue away kit that's been released for next season, mate? That looks utterly banging. That does.
What's your thoughts on the red collar? I do like that.
Yeah, me too. So just hope we can put a gold badge on the sleeve, mate.
It's Jimmy Rimmer's birthday today. In my opinion, an underrated and overlooked Arsenal player. Who do you consider as the most underrated Arsenal player of all time?
Wow. It's got to be in my lifetime.
Underrated as well.
Do you know who I'm going to say for this?
Who?
Theo Walcott.
Interesting.
Theo Walcott is about 10 goal contributions shy of 200 goal contributions for Arsenal.
Yeah.
And I sat next to a guy, used to call him Uncle Derek. I sat next to a guy for 5-6 years in I actually think my season ticket, Smugsy, is very close to yours, like in the North Bank, about 11 rows back on the. I think you're behind the goal, aren't you, in the
Yeah,
North Bank lower? Yeah, my season ticket was there. I was just behind the left post as you look up the as you
yeah.
look up the field of play, and I sat there for 5 or 6 years, right, in row 11, and I just heard this guy just absolutely bash Walcott every single week, win, lose or draw, hat trick or flop, right? He just absolutely like berated the bloke, and and then actually, if you listen to the ex pros, if you think about it, mate, yeah, we bought him for 12 million quid. We sold him for 25. He scored 120 goals for Arsenal and got 65 assists. Like
Yeah,
he
it's pretty
in the
crazy, isn't it?
in the Emirates era, can you think of like a winger who's been better than him, probably other than Saka? Like only really Saka has kind of done the output that Walcott's done.
Mm. I,
So
yeah.
I've got to do in I've got to do in my lifetime. Um, yeah, mate. I would really. I want to have a quick think about it, mate. So you have a quick think. Who would yours be?
Oh, Jesus, I wasn't even thinking about it. So I was listening to yours. I think Theo Walcott's an incredible shout. I really think he has. I was a massive, massive fan. Like, I don't know if he was. I don't know if he was underrated, but I think he could have won much more of us if he stayed fit. With Santi Cazorla, fucking
I've
what
got
a
another one
player!
as well.
What a player! But if I'm going further back,
Santi Cazorla. I think Santi Cazorla probably was recognised because when they talk about ex-players, every
yeah,
single one of the ex-players says like he was the best player they played with, and I'm sitting there thinking, "Fucking hell, mate! You play with like Prime Ozil and Prime Sanchez. That is some." Do you know the other one I would say, Smugs?
who?
Lauren Koscielny.
Yeah, top defender, top defender. Yeah, again, probably didn't have the whole team around him. Imagine if he was in this team, he wouldn't get. To be
Oh,
fair, he'd struggle with Saliba and Gabriel, but gee, well, I don't know. Like he's still. Imagine if you had them three as your defenders.
mate, I'm not sure that Saliba keeps like prime Lauren Koscielny out this
Ah,
Arsenal team. Honestly, I thought Lauren Koscielny was absolutely top draw. Like, I went to two Barcelona games and he pocketed Messi in both of them, like masterclass defending. Prime Messi as well.
yeah, yes, a good shout. That is a good shout. That's a great shout. Lauren Koscielny was a top defender. Just a bit, it didn't sit right with me his ending, but I think that was down to Emery, him and Emery, which was a bit sad really because he served us well, man. He scored a lot of big goals for us. The next question: when we win all four trophies this season, does that automatically mean Mikel Arteta becomes our greatest ever manager?
Oh my god.
If he won all four, though, where would that put him? Like, when you think about it, like considering where he's come from and took over the
The
club.
only thing I would say is like the only thing I would say is I think it's slept on, mate, how impressive that 2 year period was. And it's 2 years where you got to remember the year before Wenger went invincible, he was invincible until April as well, the season before. And then he said, I want you to win the like he actually called it at the start of the season. Like we're gonna win the league and not lose a game. Like
Yeah,
that is some statement to go and do that. Um, and obviously, we still got 90 points that season. Arteta hasn't had a 90-point season, and he won't get 90 points this season if we win the league. We just,
it's
I don't think we. Well, look, we've got 13 games left, so which would give you 39 points, and we're on 56. So if he won every single game, we'd get to 94. But I think we will drop. I think we will at least draw two, even if we win 11, which will get to 90. So
I think it's I think it's an incredible question that like when I think about it.
it's a brilliant question.
But I don't think so.
I would,
I don't think so. Right, and this is I'm sitting there thinking I'm
yeah.
not right in saying this because actually Arsenal never won the Champions League and didn't even win the League Cup. But what Arsenal did to that whole club, I think it'll take Arteta. I think he'll have to win the Premier League a few times with it.
Yeah, I mean, he won the Premier League 3 times, Arsene, and he won the FA Cup. He's got the record for most FA Cup wins by a manager.
Yeah, if he won the quadruple, mate, first manager ever.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, like, that would be some feat. I mean, it would be very, very difficult. But, like, this is again this sort of like immediate fan mentality of like you can just automatically become a legend based on one season. They're like, yeah, status like best ever. Form is temporary, and class is permanent. Like it would put him straight in the window for being the best ever. It would be the best ever Arsenal team ever, because obviously it won every single trophy it played in, which would mean that by proxy he has managed that team. But I do think that I do think what's a similar conversation, mate. And you love my golf similarity analogies. Rory McIlroy has become only one of 6 people ever, I think only 3 post-war, to win a career Grand Slam, like win all 4 majors in golf. Yeah, but he is not even remotely discussed as being the best golfer of all time. He's not even in the conversation with Nicklaus and Woods. And I would say it's something similar. Having a feat like that puts you straight into the conversation of being amongst the greatest managers in Premier League history. But I'm not quite convinced that in 125 years of Arsenal's history, it makes him the best Arsenal manager ever. I would say that he just needs, what he would then need to do is just prove that it wasn't a fluke by going and winning another one of the major honours again. I don't think he needs to get to Arsenal's 3 Premier League titles, but you've got to remember as well, in that window, Arsenal won the Premier League 3 times in 6 years against the best Man United team ever. And who's been better over a 10, 12-year period? Ferguson's United or Pep's City? That is the biggest debate in Premier League history, because like some players in the Premier League, like Giggs has won the Premier League 13 times. So all of them under Sir Alex.
I think it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting debate. I think
it is an interesting debate. I just think he's probably just got to. I think he's just probably got to go and just do one. I think he's just probably got to go and just do one more thing. One.
Yeah.
He'd have to probably go and just in the next couple of years, he'd just have to go and win. He'd have to go and win.
Yeah, I think just doing it in one season, I think that's where the problem is, isn't it? Like, it's weird we're saying that, because that's the ultimate dream, is to win the quadruple. Can't get better than that. But I think with Arteta, he'll need to back it up by doing it season in, season out. If he goes and wins the Premier League and then goes and wins the Champions League again, then I don't think there's any question of a doubt that actually Mikel Arteta will end up going down as the best ever Arsenal manager. If he did that.
Yeah, and if you ask Liverpool diehard fans, do you think they would say that Klopp's the greatest Liverpool manager of all time? I'm not sure that they would. I think obviously everyone would just fall back onto Busby, right? Or I can't remember. Because they had that dominance over that 70s and 80s, or sorry, not Busby, but who is it? Is it Busby or Ramsey or
Shankly?
Shanklin, sorry, yes, I'm thinking of Man United managers. Yeah. So, I think I think it's similar to that sort of scenario where if he won 4 in 1 year, you still can't cancel out the 6 years where he won nothing. So he'd need to go and just stack on a little bit more, just on top of it, just to show that it wasn't like a one season wonder, like when City weren't at the races and Liverpool weren't at the races. He needs to go and get in a dogfight and then do them again. You know. But brilliant question.
The last question. Oh, I've just lost it, which is never good. What methods do you think Mikel will use to help the players shut out the noise out from outside? And how big of a part is Gabriel Heinze playing in the run-in to the title and other competitions? I thought we were losing a big factor when Carlos Cuesta left, and I thought he'd be a big miss.
Uh, yeah, look, mate, we don't know. Like he's obviously doing very, very well because he's part of a management team and an assistant manager at the moment in a team that's just won Champions League group, is in a League Cup final, and is winning the Premier League by 6 points. So by proxy, he's had a brilliant breakthrough season at Arsenal, but can't dismiss what Carlos Cuesta did
No.
in his coaching capacity, because he was part of a management team that got us to 85 and 89 points respectively, and we should have won the league one of them years. So I can't I, you know I, it's difficult, isn't it? Because like I think we see enough of Arteta on the pitch to understand who the real boss is, and then other people kind of contribute to him. But he is the alpha in that whole management thing. The other guys work for him. They don't work with him and give him like and he's implementing their opinions. It's not Ted Lasso. It's the Mikel Arteta show. But he's got phenomenal experience. What I found was interesting was that someone was talking about Gabriel Ente the other day in the media, and they said that he is primarily Arsenal's defensive coach. And I didn't know that. I thought he was a well-round. I just assumed when you're on an assistant manager level at Arsenal, you're not honed into or pigeonholed into one particular area of specialism. I thought you would just coach the team in its entirety. So if he is responsible for this defensive unit, then you would say he's doing a really good job. But like we've conceded 17, 18 goals so far this season, and then so if at the end of the season we've conceded 25, how many did we concede last year? It's in the 20s, I think. So then you would turn around and be like, hey, has he made that much of an impact? I don't know. So I would probably say, just to answer that question a bit more rounded, about somebody who has affected the off the pitch element. So anyone outside of the players, I would say the biggest growth that Arsenal have had this year is the sacking of Edu and the appointment of Andrea Berta. That has been the biggest thing that has contributed to the team's change this season.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the Nicholas Berta effect has been a key piece, and it just showed that Edu had taken a club where he got to get to. And look, he did a good job getting us where he needed to get to, but we needed the upgrade, mate. We needed to be world class, and that's what Nicholas Berta is.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, obviously, everyone, for your questions tonight. That's your Ask Jim segment completed. So look, that's another edition of the N5 show fully completed tonight. Really enjoyed it. Got to discuss a lot of things tonight in terms of past victories against Leeds, Sunderland, Chelsea, looking ahead to Brentford, Wigan. And look, we only spoke about Wolves, but we'll do that next week on the M5 show, where I'm sure it'll be another big show. Any final comments from you, Jim, before you say your farewells tonight and go to Sleepland?
Yeah, just that, mate. Another great show. I hope you feel well soon, Smugsy. It's going to be a very interesting few days, because we've got, obviously, City can pile the pressure on us a little bit if you believe in all that stuff tomorrow by technically getting to play Fulham first. What's really interesting the next week is actually like a really interesting dynamic, because City can win tomorrow and they're 3 points behind us, so we're looking over our shoulder a bit. But actually, if we can just really, really compose ourselves and beat Brentford and Wolves in the next week, we're 9 points clear of them, and we're 9 points clear of them for a little while, because yes, they've got a game in hand, but like the league table will read 9 points, I think, for a week or two, if I read correctly, until they play again. So actually, just in this whole kind of edging ahead and trying to have a little bit of mental fortitude and a bit of a one up on your opponent, the next sort of 7 days are actually very, very interesting as to how the media are going to utilize it, and how it's all going to play out in the story that is the Premier League, that is sort of rapidly moving towards the closing chapters in this story. So, fingers crossed, mate. Like, I think your 11 wins on Thursday night. It's not going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be particularly pretty either, to be honest. But we get over the line on Thursday night, and then we can go to Wolves away, and really try and stick it on City and get 9 points ahead of them, and then then make them have to go and win.
Definitely. And look, if I can't lure you in any further, and I've already lured you in next weekend, following weekend, North London derby, Tottenham Arsenal. So there will be a special edition next week in terms of the North London derby. So make sure you're zoned into the M5 show for that. We will be back next Tuesday night, 5:30. We will go again. But look, a very good evening to everyone. And this go forward to Brentford and hopefully pick up 3 more big juicy points. Good night.